Welcome to this edition of Tech Talk. I'm Keith Bryant, and my interview guest this week is Greg Vance. He's got a long pedigree with roles within the electronics manufacturing industry. He's contributed greatly to the SMTA, which he joined in 2001. And now I'm chatting to him because he's now seeking to run for president of the association. We're going to talk about the changing role of trade associations in today's fast-moving manufacturing environment and what skills and policies Greg Vance will bring to the SMTA if he were elected president. But before I start in with that interview, I'd like to ask a small favor from our watchers and listeners. The success that our podcasting programs have relies heavily on the support of you guys. So if it would help us enormously if you'd subscribe and like this episode by clicking subscribe and ringing the bell. And we'll be right back after this. Welcome to the program, Greg. It's lovely to see you. Probably my first question, you've been on the board of directors in various roles already, including being interim president for a while, and nursing us through the COVID times. So perhaps that would be a good starting point to outline.
Hi, Keith. Great to chat with you today. Thanks for the opportunity to talk about my campaign for SMTA president. Yeah, 2020 was a real interesting year. We had our SMTA leadership conference in Florida, that year, Orlando, Florida, and it happened at the end of February. And at that time, we had a transition. Jeff Kennedy went to work for Kaizen, and there's a policy, an SMTA policy, that there can't be two board members sitting on the board, including president, from the same company. So he resigned. So at that meeting, we needed to transition to an interim president, which after discussion amongst the board, I was selected, obviously wanting to do that as well to help the organization. So I remember flying home from Florida after that leadership conference, and it just, over the course of that 5-day trip, just to see how things started transitioning as COVID became a bigger and bigger concern. And I remember thinking to myself, what did I just get myself into? But as we know, the pandemic took hold of the world. And as an organization, I, Tanya Martin, and the board of directors worked tirelessly to figure out how we continue to function as an organization. Particularly at that time, SMTA events were nearly 100% face-to-face. We had chapter meetings face-to-face, expos face-to-face, even our conferences all face-to-face. So we, as a board and an organization, worked to create the platforms, to provide the technology, to help our chapters continue to engage with our members and their members throughout that COVID period. Additionally, as an organization, we rely on a lot of our conferences and expositions for funding. So there's a great deal of effort put into how do we transition through that. And Tanya in particular and her team put a lot of effort into managing the financial aspect through that. But I was very proud of the organization. We transitioned from nearly 100% face-to-face to for pretty much the remainder of 20 and 2021 to predominantly a virtual organization. And I think that really kickstarted us to where we are today. As you review the event calendar for SMTA, there's a nice mix of face-to-face and virtual events that chapters host, and chapters collaborate differently in the virtual environment. They co-host meetings, which I think is really awesome to see the interaction between chapters to pull off events together and grow the SMTA community. So yeah, it was a challenging year. Spent a lot of time thinking and collaborating, and I'm very proud of how the organization progressed through that period.
Yeah, I have to say, speaking as a chairman of the chapter in Europe, it was a challenging time for everybody, but the whole team pulled together and it worked well. And while we're wasn't in my script to do yet, but while we're talking about real versus virtual events, what is your view going forwards? I mean, I know there was and there still is within certain quarters a lot of let's say pushback for virtual events, but they definitely have a place. I mean, the Mike Conrad is recording a lot of the presentations that we do now, and they're going up on the knowledge base, and obviously that's a great thing, because it's so much better than just being able to just see the slides or look at the paper. But of course you don't get the interaction with the presenter, you don't get really easily to be able to ask questions. So what do you think?
So I think a balance of media is the right answer. Uh, so obviously, SMTA as an organization is building their digital library. I think that's a good thing. One of the challenges, and I identified this with my in the article from Mike Buteau, is he asked, what is one of our challenges? What he specifically said, SMTA members. And as I thought about that question, I'm like, I think the biggest challenge we have is time and the lack thereof it. So I think as an organization, that is how do we provide information in a variety of formats. I think face-to-face meetings are still a wonderful way for a group of individuals with common interests to gather, to get to know one another differently. The socialization aspect of virtual events is limiting and challenging. So I think that's important to bring people together, whether it's for a chapter meeting or at a conference. It enables individuals to build relationships easier than in the virtual world. But uh, virtual meetings and recordings are another tool in the toolbox. I don't think they're the only answer. I think they are a technology that can help complement and help the organization be more successful in, I guess, from a chapter meeting perspective. From that element, one of the challenges some chapters have is their geographical reach. Particularly when you get into the uh, Western states, even Europe. Look at Europe. How can we bring people together? Sometimes a virtual meeting is a very good way to do that. So I think it's going to be a blend of both going forward. So digital isn't going away, but I don't think the face-to-face is going to be eliminated either.
Okay, and if we get into face to face for a minute, our big international show SMTAI is back in Rosemount this year.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts going into the show and the conference?
Well, I'm excited to go back to Chicago. We gave Minneapolis a try, and I think the conference space worked very well. The expo was nice being with MD&M. We engaged and had some additional attendees for the exhibitors to interact with. But I think going back to Chicago, the venue, Rosemont, will be easier for our exhibitors to travel to. It's going to be easier for attendees to get to, with Chicago being an international airport. So I think it's going to be very positive. SMTA International, as long as I've been involved, has moved around. Back in the day, it used to go back and forth between Texas and Florida. And as time went on, we felt like there was a change to be needed. The organization, the board at that time, took us to Chicago. I think that yielded many good years. So I don't know that there is a single location that's going to be right forever. So as a board, we need to continue to explore that and work with Tanya and her team to see what venues would support us well. And I know from my time on the board, they've reviewed that and explored that, and we've used that information to make the choices we have.
Yeah, and I have to say it. I do a lot of conferences around the world, and SMTAI is always looked on as a highlight for me. And in fact, this year will be my 20th anniversary. So I first presented there in 2004. I don't remember where, but I remember. So yeah.
What was the topic, Keith?
It would have been X-ray of some description for sure, but I need to go back and dig the paper out the knowledge base and have another look.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, the world has definitely moved on a lot, but no, I mean as you say, the exhibition has changed a little from there, but and again, globally exhibitions have changed. The conference is still strong. The conference still brings in a lot of people with large audiences coming in to see stuff, and I sit in the INS session committee, and we've got 11, 12 papers this year, and that's just in one of our sessions, and I think there's almost 100 papers in the whole event, and they're heavily scrutinized and monitored, so it's all good from a technical level.
Yes, and that's an important aspect of SMTAI, is it's a peer conference. So there's committees for each of the session tracks that review the papers. They critique the papers. They give feedback to the authors on the papers. So that adds additional credibility to the content that individuals are receiving. Personally, I've been attending SMTA International for many, many years. I don't recall when my first conference was, but being in my role in electronics manufacturing, that conference, I've always enjoyed attending the technical conference to learn from others what challenges they have and how they've solved them and what they've learned. I don't necessarily look for presentations to solve a problem for me, but to provide nuggets of insight and ideas that I can take back and use in my process. Because although we share common technology, common equipment, our products are all distinctively different. The emphasis that one may have on design for assembly versus another can influence it. So we have different challenges. We're at different, I guess, maybe maturity levels of different challenges. I'll just leave it at that. We have different challenges. And SMTA International can help individuals build their technology roadmap, understand what's coming. Low temperature solder, for example, is really starting to become more relevant in organization now that lead is nearly exacerbated from our supply chain. And I think it's going to be exciting. And as professionals, we need to stay up to date with what's changing. And I think the SMTA International Conference, as well as the others, PAMPAC, what have you, chapter meetings, are a wonderful way to do that. The other beautiful thing about SMTA International is not only do you have the technical conference, but you have the interaction with the exhibitors. So you have an alternative to other conferences that are out there around the world to go spend time learning what's new that the exhibitors are offering as they're continuing to improve their equipment, their services, their chemistries, and their technologies. So it's a win-win. And as you pick up that nugget at the conference, you can take it down and talk to the exhibitors. And I think that really provides a unique opportunity that SMTA International specifically offers.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I've always enjoyed is there's a mix of what I would call scientific and technology papers. We have a lot of people from universities and R&D labs
Mhm.
presenting, something that's maybe even 3, 5 years away. And then we have other people like now talking about, how to use low temperature solder, what you need to do to your line to make it work. And, it's a really good blend. And I'm really hoping that you can keep that rolling because, you go to some events and it's all like buy my machine. You go to others and it's, I have to say, some papers that I struggle to understand. So it's really
Well,
good, that mix.
it is. It is. And remember, there's a lot of information out there. First of all, I applaud individuals that step up and present at our conferences, that present at our expos, to present at our chapter meetings, because that takes it takes courage to put yourself out there, to share your thoughts, and we're all at different have different levels of experience doing that, um, and so we have to remember that that takes a leap of faith that they're going to be okay, and I can assure them after doing it myself, they will, because it's important for me personally, beyond I've always enjoyed the networking aspect of SMTA and being able to discuss and chat about the technology in a variety of formats, whether it be in a technical session, whether it be with an exhibitor, whether it be in a lounge in an evening, and just converse and share ideas and learn others' perspectives to help me uh, develop better studies to be more successful. And I think that's really, at the end of the day, what the SMTA does. It helps us learn, grow, and solve our problems so that we can be more productive.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the things that I want to ask you about is getting new people, well, not only into the SMTA, but getting new people into the industry. It's an unfortunate fact of life. A lot of us are getting older, and we need to be doing our best to bring in the. I don't like to use the phrase "new blood," but I'm sure you know what I mean. So, what are your thoughts
Right.
on how we can improve doing that and how we can basically look more appealing?
That's a very good question. And going back to the time element, one of the time robbers that we've experienced in this industry and others over the last 4 years is the challenges in finding qualified workers, to find interested workers in our industry. And uh, workforce development is a pillar of our strategic framework, and it has been a passion of mine for many years, dating back to my experience with the Ohio Valley SMTA chapter, as well as my time on the board. Um, as an industry, we need to cultivate a pipeline of talent for our industry. And we need to do that at the university level, at the community college level, at the career center level, and also work with our local STEM programs just to expose individuals that electronics and electronic manufacturing um, is a viable industry that um, they can join. And I'm very happy that with the efforts that we've done, and it's been, I think, I wouldn't say accelerated, but helped by the CHIPS Act. It puts greater emphasis on that for us to develop those pipelines. And I think SMTA in particular, the chapters are positioned in a unique um, way to help facilitate those conversations. As we all know, Keith, right, your geographical region, your industries um, uh, may favor one technology more than another. And that's where collaboration with the chapter, with the community colleges, with the universities, but particularly I think that the community colleges and the career centers can encourage them to create programs that tailor to the unique needs of one geographical area versus another. Let's take Arizona for example. Very large emphasis on semiconductors and semiconductor packaging that may not be in another region. So, again, we have to engage with all of those institutions as well as our area economic development boards to emphasize the need that we have as an industry, and coming together increases our voice to help us get their attention and to be successful long term. And the other aspect that I think is important for us as an association is SMTAs refer to it as being a hub. I see and hear of programs starting all the time, and it's almost like they start from scratch. Well, we have this need, and the need is real, but they go off and they create their programs almost from scratch. And my vision is if of what success would look like is we are a hub for what those programs are, how they're structured, who are key contacts. So as an area develops and is initiating programs at the different levels, they have resources that they can look at to see how they've structured their curriculum, um, what challenges they have, even training opportunities. Because when you get into developing these programs, the instructors, there's qualifications and requirements that states and other countries and or areas have on those doing that training. So I think we can establish that network to help that be to accelerate and to be more successful.
Perfect. I think that's close to the perfect answer, Greg. So, if we broaden out SMTA a little bit, we've always been the assembly guys. You've talked about packaging. Obviously, that's becoming a broader area now in
Mhm.
not only in the US, but a lot of other regions. And also, we kind of have a gray area now where we look at bare printed circuit boards where they're getting embedded components and other things happening. What's your vision for the SMTA going forward? Do you want to sort of keep the blinkers on, or you want to, throw away the history and basically broaden us out a little bit more, maybe even work with, the PCIF, the other organizations that are like more specialists in their field?
Uh, so if you look back at our mission statement, and this is one of the things we did back in 2020 at our leadership conference, is we revised our mission statement. We did it and discussed it as a board, worked on it and voted on it, and then took it to our chapter leaders at that conference. And I don't think that required a vote from all the membership. But when we revised the mission statement back then, we expanded it to include component packaging, electronic manufacturing, and box build, final assembly operations. So we've set our scope back then that's where we want to expand into. We've had some packaging. There's obviously a number of chapters that have emphasis on packaging. Again, going back to they have um, that technology in their geographical region, so it just makes sense. We haven't broken to back end assembly, but I really think that's transitioning, particularly with all the automation and the tools that are developing that support that. Think of auto blocks is a perfect example where it's focused more on the back end. So I think as the technology of how we do back end assembly uh, increases, I think it's going to be natural for that area to grow within our association. But we need to cultivate that. We need to seek it and expand it. And again, going back to the, particularly in the U.S., the CHIP Act, I think is just going to propel that because those technologies are going to be become more widespread in the United States and across the world. We do have a number of members in a chapter in Taiwan. Obviously, that's um, the they produce the lion's share of semiconductors today. So we just need to continue to cultivate that. And I think that's where, as you're voting for board of directors, I think that personally I look at where do we need to improve? Where do we need to expand? And one of the way we do that as an organization is bringing in the perspectives and the insights to the board of directors. So I think that's when we look at how our board is the different technologies that they represent is an important thing to consider.
Yeah, I completely, wholeheartedly agree with you there. And now I've got time for a couple of questions more. So we say we're an international organization. We have a huge amount of success in Mexico. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I actually presented to the Taiwan chapter last year. So yeah, I know they're growing well. And at the moment, the fastest growing region globally is India. And it's said that in 3 years that's going to be bigger than China is. So what are your thoughts as president for how we can lever things happening outside of the US? Because when
Mm-hmm.
when I talk to people about SMTA Europe, I get occasionally the feedback that yeah, you say international, but really it's all about the US. I mean, I know that's not true, but what are you going to do to change that perception and get more members in India and Europe and Taiwan and all the other places that are growing?
Right. Right. Good question. So we are an international organization and have been for since our beginning 40 years ago. But we originated in the United States, so that's where everything spun off from. Uh, International chapter development is um, something we focus on and have focused on as a board of director. And it's a matter of figuring out that region and how we as an organization can help promote networking, promote technical sharing. We've had a chapter in India for many years. I think as that technology expands, we just need to figure out how we create that outreach. And as you look at Mexico, Mexico, I watched that just evolve, if even if you want to call it explode, where you get that core group of individuals within that geographical region that understand what that region needs and how to connect with individuals, and you support them and help them be successful. We have our standards as an organization. We're a technology sharing organization. That's what we do. We're a networking organization. That's what we do. We try to connect people to current technology through our exhibits, and so that's what we do. So, but we need to work with those in those regions to figure out how to do it better. We need to cultivate it, and once we reach some critical mass, boom, it takes off. And I think that's what's happened in Mexico. We went from one chapter in Guadalajara 7 years ago to now we have one, two, three, four, five or six. And we have the chapter alliance structure. And that's the other thing that we've done as an organization is we've established the alliance structure, because I always felt when I was on the board that we got tied down on trying to establish leadership structures within the chapter, which there's always some apprehension for individuals to step up to. And the alliance designation of a group of people within a region that are coming together, it's strictly to come together. It's to come together, network, to share, have a technical meeting. There's no other requirements. There's no bank accounts. We just need a group of individuals that are willing to work together to make that happen. So I think we're providing the opportunities to remove the obstacles that have limited that expansion in the past. And we need to continue to cultivate that and watch it grow and be successful. And we have to be open to change. And each region, I think, is going to be unique. And that's okay. We don't have to be the same. But we want to be an international community of professionals that share information, that we can learn from one another, again, so that we can each be successful at what we do.
Yep. Again, Greg, another really succinct and good detailed answer. The final question I'm going to leave you with, we spoke before we started recording that you have 5, let's call them visions for what you would like to achieve should you be elected to be our next president. I think we've covered education and training and maybe one or two others. But if there's anything that you think we've missed in our conversation in terms of what Greg Vance is going to bring to the table, then I'm going to shut up and end the interview with you running through anything that you think is key to what you're going to be bringing to us in the future, should you be elected.
So I guess a couple of points yet to touch on. Membership is the red thread that goes through everything, all of my strategic goals, and I think everything that we as an organization represent. So memberships, our members, the value that you get as becoming a member. I've always been a firm believer. If we understand if we provide value for somebody to get something out of it, they'll generally put the effort into participate and attend. And that's a two-way street. People need to come and they need to interact, and that's something we need to cultivate. But specifically, there's 2 points I want to touch on. One, education and training. That has been another pillar of our strategic plan. As an organization, we've been putting a lot of effort into it to expand it. And think of the tech tips that come out and the additional training. Our certification program has been and continues to thrive and is actually growing. And you talk about India, just one of the things that's really taking off is the number of individuals in Mexico that are becoming SMTA process certified. As that technology grows in India, they're going to have the same needs. And I think that SMT certification, process certification, establishes the credibility of understanding that an individual has. Beyond that, continue to expand. I myself am a master Lean Six Sigma black belt. I think being able to understand, process map, identify root causes, do experimentation to identify what the big X's are is very important for us as professionals and engineers in this field. Um, and I think that's something we need to continue to provide and explore for those in organization that don't have those resources available, like I did here at Rockwell Automation. The final thing is, as an organization, we need to manage the finances of the organization. And as the dynamics of the world goes on day to day, the challenges that are laid in front of us change. And as a board, we're responsible for ensuring that we have an organization that has strong financial health. And in order for us to ensure our continued success, we need to continue to focus on that. And I think the board of directors over the last many years have done a fabulous job of building a strong financial organization that could weather storms, as was illustrated back in 2020 through 2023 through the pandemic. Was a very challenging time, but we had the reserves to support the organization. So I think it's important that we keep that front and center and continue to maintain that as we move forward, and explore alternatives to generate revenue. It takes money to run this organization. It takes money to put on events, and we need to continue to cultivate ideas in which to generate that. So again, that's what the board does. And any ideas that members have, suggestions to do that better, please let us know.
Thank you very much, Greg. It's good to hear let's say the commercial aspect as well, because so many people forget that, we are a non-for-profit, but effectively we still have to have money rolling around in the system to exist. It's about generating huge amounts of money, but it's about generating enough to ensure our existence. And as you say, you did a great job through COVID when pretty much all of the revenue streams dried up like overnight.
Yeah, the whole Tanya and her staff, the board of directors, they really we collaborated to deal with the situation at hand, and I'm very proud of how we as an organization came out of the pandemic and those challenges that we experienced.
Okay, Greg. Well, I think we've run a little bit over our time, to be polite. Um, Last final question before I say farewell. People should vote for Greg Vance because just a few words.
Well, because of everything that we talked about.
Yep.
Passionate about the organization. I had fulfilled the role as president back during the challenges of COVID and the pandemic. I'd really like the opportunity to work with the board when we're not in such a time of chaos. So that, given the vision that I've laid out for you and our pillars and the work that I've done in the past, I'd like to continue to facilitate that in leading the board over the next 2 years.
Greg Vance, thank you very much for sharing your vision of the future and your thoughts on SMTA going forwards. And as we do with both the candidates, we wish you every success. And thank you very much for sharing your time with us today on Tech Talk with Keith Bryant for Global SMT and Packaging. How we're going to overcome this